0, 1. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome to Beyond Top 10 Tennis. My name is Dr. Ashley Berge and I'm your host. If you're not familiar with my work or would like to learn more about it, head on over to AM8 International, the first tennis lab of its kind worldwide that is centered on delivering top 10 tennis rankings and is 100% backed by science. I'm the author of 13 books behind multiple theories and have been an elite coach for over 19 years and work with athletes around the world, Europe, US to Australia. I'm also the world's leading authority in this space with my research coupled with my extensive coaching background, being responsible for landmark findings to deliver the next generation of play. With new foundations this season of my latest release, My Tennis Black Book, Federer, Nadal, Serena, Djokovic, the 2025 season will deliver something new. So as always, buckle in and enjoy the ride. Welcome to another episode of Beyond Top 10 Tennis. And I can't believe we're really kicking off week 2 of the new year. We already have the United Cups just wrapped up last night and the Brisbane International. We've got Hobart underway, Adelaide underway, Auckland for ATP underway. WTA is here as always. So look, if you've been with us for some time now, thank you so much. You know what we're all about. If you are new, welcome. Again, WTA is here, ATP Tour is here. We will dive into very briefly the rankings today. WTA has already updated their rankings for today or the new week. ATP Tour has yet to do so. They may do it when we get there, so we will check, but there's only a couple of key movers really to report on, but we will get back to that, I think, later in the week because it is the Australian Summer of Tennis, so our episodes will be more frequent as always this time of year. But I really want to dive into what's been happening the past couple of days. So it's only been a couple of days really since our previous episode, but there's so much to cover. Again, this time of year, it is jam-packed. So I really wanted to share those insights, especially we are now less than a week from the Australian Open or when it kicks off. But before we do that, I do not have the hard copy just yet in front of me. All of my other texts you will see behind their original covers sleeves. So when you do order them, they might look a little bit different. That said, so my latest release, it only came out literally just before Christmas. My Tennis Black Book, Federer, Nadal, Serena, Djokovic, yes, in order of Grand Slams. I'm really excited about this. If you haven't got your hands on it yet, please do. There's a complete plan in it for the 2025 season and beyond, which we will be following this season as soon as I have my hands on it. But it's intertwined with Beyond Top 10 Tennis. It's intertwined with a couple of those texts behind me to show you how to work your way through it. Also, key lessons from last season, so the 2024 season, and the implications for this season. Really exciting and profound. And as the title suggests, it is a black book. It is secretive in the sense and explicit and unique for you and your game, and there is a very key method behind that we'll touch on in future episodes. But by its namesake, Federer, Nadal, Serena, Djokovic, yes, in order of Grand Slam or their respective tallies. And where that comes from is that this is the first of its kind that will give you the key foundations on how to follow in those footsteps. And again, you heard in the intro, it's backed by science. So this isn't just opinion. There's all the science that's underwrapped there. And if you are familiar with my work and you've been following, arguably potentially the longest longitudinal analysis of its kind, ongoing for more than 10 years now. I think we're up to 12 years, looking at the best players in the world and when they were peaking. And something I'm always excited to share is that, believe it or not, when Federer and Nadal were at their peaks and Djokovic was coming up, our metrics, so the science, so the data I uncovered, pinpointed Djokovic to overtake these two. Really profound. Why Serena was ahead of the rest, the key technical inferences behind that. Also now, why when Sabalenka was inside the top 10, rewind from a few seasons ago, roughly about 5-6 seasons ago, I believe, why she wasn't winning Grand Slams then, why it took a couple more seasons for that to happen, why Swiatek, when she was ranked around 80 in the world at that time, was poised to win her maiden Grand Slam. And there's a lot of other players that fit into that category. Osaka was there with our data. Ruud has been there with our data as well. There's a lot of names. Sinner, Alcaraz, why Badosa, when she was inside the top 10, why that didn't correlate with Grand Slam success. So many key players and key data points and what you can learn for your game. More importantly though, again, the Australian Open, it's almost here. And also obviously the rest of the season. If you are a top 10 player or a top 100 player and you're looking for that differential, what you can do now to help your game this season, whether it is win a Grand Slam, win another Grand Slam, make it to your first round of 16 at the Grand Slam level, to your first semi-final at the Grand Slam level. It's all in the collection. So behind me and the new release, which I will be able to show you hopefully in the next fortnight, deliveries. But it's very, very, I think, substantial, important, and what I think's really important, for lack of better wording, to share is that there is so much information out there, and that's why you really need to know how to cut through it all. There is a myriad of coaches out there, people I like to think with good intentions that can help, but where AM8 International comes in, where my work comes in to complement that, to help whether it's yourself as a player and or coach, but reach that next milestone, that next level, because we have that data there, the technical applications there, whether we're looking at the amount of torque in your game, the amount of momentum in your game, if you're pushing or following through with that ball, we're noticing, for example, some players are lifting up too soon at the moment rather than lowering and maintaining the depth of that center of gravity. Just for example, the momentum through their strokes, they're so whether they're leveraging their kinetic chain, optimizing their elastic energy, all these I think scientific buzzwords. And for more of that, the science of elite performance, the big one, the big blue one back there, shares more on that. But we're refining it in the sense of when you're playing, there are so many, I think, key micro discrepancies, I term them, that separate a player ranked between 50 and 100 in the world to say a player ranked 30 to the top 10 in the world, and the rulers behind the 8%, so the top 8 players in the world. And then we really get down to the nitty gritty, why we've got players that maintain their top 10 ranking throughout the season and why other players don't. Typically, again, if you're familiar with my work, we know 2 to 3% of the top 10, so essentially that's 30% there, or 20 to 30%, will regress outside the top 10 each season, while we have those barrier breakers, those newcomers, a lot more of that. But we're very early on in the season, so I won't dive too more into that. We'll hold off. But with all this data, we know there are some key players, and why I get very excited this time of year, because we're going to see upsets in Australia. We've already seen them in Brisbane, a lot of seeds fallen, newcomers arriving. Why the United Cup was so exciting, seeing some of the best players in the world face off against one another. Also the results and what they really have to say, and we'll share more on that as we move through today's episode. But there are so much, I think, available out there, and why this is a very big differentiator for players, especially looking to gain that edge. And obviously, as the starting point is that new release, My Tennis Black Book. You can grab it on AM8 International or Amazon, so irrespective where you're based in the world. All right, so let's dive into today's episode. Again, WTA's here, ATP here. Well, we're going to dive into WTA first. We won't do the rankings till later, so we will circle back. Let's start with the United Cup. So we're up to the quarterfinals. So going on from our most recent episode. So we had Poland and Great Britain, and I really hope you're on the edge of your seat just as I was, because look at this, Hurkacz over Harris. Well done to Harris to I think keep Hurkacz this close, 7-6, 7-5 to Hurkacz, but it was very close, just like the scoreline suggests. But this is the one that I was all in for, Swiatek and Bulter. I think this is the best I've actually seen Bulter play ever, in all fairness, and I think she really had to, with the level that Swiatek has been or was playing at. 6-7, 6-1, 6-4 to Swiatek. Other than, I think, that second set, it was neck and neck. It was incredibly exciting. Bulter was this close from gaining that win. Well done to Katie. Definitely, I think she's arriving to have her ranking inside the top 20, ideally for the entirety of the season. That is where her level is at. Potentially, if she keeps this up, top 15, let's see what happens from there. And what I really like from Swiatek is that she was able to hold her own. We're seeing some good things there. However, I want more because the scoreline was that close. Yes, Swiatek was able to hold her off, but there was something more needed, but we'll see that in the following matches. All right, as far as the doubles were concerned, Poland did get the win over Great Britain there. All right, Italy and Czechia were also in the quarterfinals. Paolini and Mikova. Now, this scoreline was not as anticipated because Paolini had been playing very well this week. Yes, Mikova had been as well. I definitely thought Paolini had the edge there, but Mikova came out, I think it got around 2 games all, and then Mikova, she really just ran away with it. 6-2, 6-2 to Mikova. Similar to Bulter, Mikova's level is top 20. We know that from last season, her results at the US Open. Definitely Mikova's going to be, I think, very dangerous come the Australian Open. Potentially she may be unseeded, but I think when we look at the rankings, she will now be seeded, which is a good thing for players, especially say inside the top 15 or top 10 nonetheless. But definitely Mikova's most likely prime, round of 16, potentially quarterfinals at this stage. That said, Paolini, similar boat, quarterfinals, even potentially semi-finals, but I'll try not to get too much ahead because I'd like to see initially those earlier rounds, how these players are playing and maintaining their form, and if they're able to lift it up a notch, which brings me back to Swiatek. What we're seeing is that she's relatively steady. She has room to lift it up a notch, which is good. That's what we want to see. Gauff, without getting too much ahead, we're seeing her lift now, and she has been booming. Can she lift it up more, or is that her level? That's going to be very interesting, because if Swiatek lifts it up a notch, you need to give her the edge going into the Australian Open in those later rounds if Gauff doesn't have that next level to build upon. Similar to Sabalenka, she was pushed to 3 in the final. It's not playing, I will say, her best tennis, but similar to Swiatek, that's going to potentially be a very good thing. We're seeing that baseline established, so I've referred to that in my latest release. And will she build on it even more? So the one concern maybe is, and similar with Paolini, so the one concern I have for, I would say, Gauff is, does she have that next level? Similar to Swiatek, Sabalenka, because Gauff is playing incredible at the moment. Can she maintain that? And I think if Gauff can maintain that level, semi-finals at least, here we come. Finalists, here we come. But let's see. I want to see a little bit more before I say, yes, Grand Slam number 2 is on the way within a matter, or within the next fortnight. All right, Caboli and Macaque. I definitely, again, thought this was going to be a little bit closer with how Caboli had been playing. Macaque, though, played exceptional in this match, 1 and 2. Definitely is heading towards top 20, although in the later matches that he did have, it was a little bit upsetting, his attitude with that retirement, which we'll get to that shortly. That was really disappointing. All right, as far as the doubles were concerned with Italy and Czechia, Italy did get that win 10-4 in the third. All right, we're going to hold off the United Cup there. We'll check back to the semi-finals and finals, so we head on over to the ATP shortly. So let's head on over now to the Brisbane International. Again, women's side, before we head on over to the men's. We were up to the round of 32. We finished last or previous episode. So we're going to kick off round of 16. And here we had Sabalenka and Putintseva. Look, a tiebreak in that first set, 7-6, but 6-4. That was closer potentially than anticipated, but I think that was a really good match for Sabalenka to find that rhythm, to find that groove. So we're seeing good things. That's what we want to see. Finding our feet. There's a chapter about that in this new release, but we want to build that rhythm. We want to hit those balls and test where that baseline is before we peak towards that next level. And I think Sabalenka and Swiatek, interestingly, have been doing that. Going down the draw, Azarenka and Bouzkova. This was an upset. Bouzkova upset Azarenka here 4-4. Bouzkova played very well in that match. All right, Jabeur and Evanesian. Good to see Jabeur push through to the quarterfinals here. 3-set win, 6-4, 1-6, 6-4. Andreeva and Noskova. I definitely thought this was going to be a little bit closer than it was, that Noskova was going to be able to push Andreeva a little bit more. But I tell you what, Mira, she's playing some exceptional tennis, 6-3, 6-love to make her way through to the quarters. At this rate, I'm not going to be surprised if Mira makes the quarterfinals in Australia, and depending on luck of the draw, semi-finals, and let's see how that plays out. The bottom of the draw, still round of 16, Kruger and Lemens. This draw, we'll say, will upset the seeds earlier. So Kruger did go through 7-5, 6-love over Lemens. Then we had Kasatkina and Kudermetova. Kudermetova upset Kasatkina, and I did touch on this in the previous episode. Kudermetova is ranked around 107, I think, is in the world prior to Brisbane. Her sister, top 20. That's real, I believe, top 20. Very interesting. And what a win for Kudermetova. She did have to come through qualifying 1-6, 6-2, 7-5. And yes, when we get to the rankings, Kudermetova is the standout, because oh my goodness, has she made inroads. And that's really all it takes, is one really impressive run, and bam, with that ranking. All right, Kalinina and Yuan, both of these players upset Sinead and Kostyuk respectively. Kalinina was the player to go through 1 and 4. Potapova and Birrell. Birrell's she played the tournament of her life. Best tennis, I think, or the results back-to-back, with her win over Navarro in the round of 32. Then she got the win over Potapova, 7-6, 6-2. She is a Gold Coast local, so that was a phenomenal result for her. All right, so on to the quarterfinals now. We had Sabalenka and Muskova. This was a very good match for Sabalenka. She did lift that level. 3 and 4 for the win to get through to the semis. Jabeur and Andreeva. This is probably just as close as I anticipated. 6-4, 7-6 to Andreeva. But that really does, I think, coincide with their respective rankings as well. All right, the other side of the quarters, we had Kruger and Kudermetova. Kudermetova very strong over Kruger, 7-6, 6-3. And then Birol Kalinina, this was so close. I think our local hopes, Aussie Kimberly is, and she is again local. I've shared more about her in previous episodes. Kalinina, though, she did get the edge. 4-6, 6-1, 7-5. And that third set, it was incredibly close. Could have gone either way for both players. All right, semi-finals, obviously we had a little bit lopsided. One semi with the seeds, other semi no seeds. So Sabalenka and Andreeva could have gone either way. This is what I like to see. Sabalenka did lift her level 3 and 2 to advance to the finals. This is points. Interestingly, a lot of players or top 10 players have been playing the United Cup, not Sabalenka. So Sabalenka's extended her lead this week over Swiatek in the rankings. Roughly there was a 1,200 point, and she's pushed that out with another 500 points, not quite to 1,000. I think it's around that 1,700 mark now. However, 12 months ago, Swiatek, I think, had a similar, if not greater lead over Sabalenka, so that's important to keep in mind. All right, other half of the semis, Kudermetova did get the win over Kalinina. Again, you need to remember, Kudermetova, 107 in the world, and I do believe prior to Brisbane, Kalinina, I'm going to say was ranked around, I will say 50 or ish in the world. Yeah, she was a 48 she's 48 now in the world after Brisbane. So I'll say a ballpark without looking at the rankings, let's say between that 60-70 range. So she definitely was favoured. Kudermetova, huge tournament. All right, so we did progress to the finals, and it did go to 3 sets. I'm just clicking over there now. All right, so Sabalenka and Kudermetova. Kudermetova, it was very interesting that first set. Kudermetova did take it from Sabalenka 6-4. Then second set, Sabalenka found that momentum, 6-3, 6-2. But well done to Kudermetova. Look, 107th in the world over number 1 in the world, to be able to keep it, I think, that close. Pushed the number 1 player to 3 sets, being ranked outside of the top 100, incredibly impressive. You definitely know that having her sister inside the top 20 has played dividends, and Kudermetova has learned a lot, and I think it's going to be very interesting the next couple of weeks to see, I think, how that plays out, and if Kudermetova does build on that ranking, because she is now ranked, I believe, around 50 or almost inside the top 50 in the world, and that's all it takes is that run at a 500 event. Very, very significant. All right, Brisbane wrapped up. Let's head on over to Auckland. From a previous episode, we did touch on round of 32, round of 16. So we are up to the quarterfinals, but I just want to touch back on the round of 16. A couple of key results. Keys in the round of 16 over Christian, 1 and 2, very solid. Kennan fell to Torsen, 3 sets though. Look how close this is, 4-6, 7-6, 7-6. So I believe Kennan's in action this week. Let's have a look how she plays, because you really need to remember, she's won Australia before. She's won the Australian Open. Yes, a number of seasons ago. That said, you can never write off a player who's won a Grand Slam previously. Marino and Pero, so Pero with that win there. Montgomery over Bino, Volonyets over Lee, Parks over Minen, Osaka over Graber, and Baptiste over Barrage, my apologies, in 3 sets, tiebreak in the third. All right, so now we'll head on over to the quarters. Keys and Torsen. So Torsen actually upset Keys here. That's a very big upset. upset, 6-4, 7-6. So that was, I think it was 9-7 in that second set tiebreak. Montgomery and Pera. So again, seeds have fallen there. So Montgomery over Pera 4-4. Other side of the quarters, we've got Parks, huge win over Volnets, the 8th seed, 1-4. Parks did start to track at the end of last season. So I think this season is going to be very, I think, pivotal or impressive, full of potential for Parks. Osaka and Baptiste. Look at this scoreline. Osaka with the win, 6-7, 6-1, 6-2. So Baptiste, she got Naomi in that first set, but then Osaka too good. And I think this is very promising, what we really want to see from Osaka, essentially with the new season. Semi-finals, Towson, Montgomery. Towson 4-3 for the win to progress through to the finals. Osaka over Parks, 4-2 for Naomi. Now, potentially, you've heard the news here. I didn't want to spoil it. Towson and Osaka here. Look, Osaka, very good. She took the first set over Towson, 6-4, but still very, very close. Obviously, it was a little bit more, or it was physically demanding. Osaka, she had a little bit of an ailment, we do believe, in her abdominal area. So she unfortunately had to retire. A very, I would say, unusual way to win. I think it's Towson's maiden title on tour. But yeah, so she is after the win, 41 in the world. She's only 22 years of age. Towson has been, I will say, subtly tracking, so not significantly, but she has been somewhat on the radar. Very impressive, I think, for Towson. Good things, I think, for this season to come, potentially top 30. All right, really quickly, Canberra. We did look at, I think, those earlier rounds in the previous episode. A lot of, I think, unfamiliar players, so players ranked, let's say, predominantly outside the top 50. Perez Diaz was the number 1 seed. But look, semi-finals, Perez Diaz was there, and so was Ito. But Ito upset the number 1 seed. Ito was the 7th seed, 6-2, 6-2. The other side of the semi-finals, we had Wei and Yala, and so seeds again had fallen 7-5, 6-2 to Wei. And the final, it was the 7th seed Ito over Wei, 4-3. So well done to Ito there. All right, so this brings us now to this week. Which I'm very much looking forward to, because it means we've got Hobart and Adelaide underway. So this does kick off today. We're not going to be able to report on any scores because maybe there is one match that is somewhat close. But let's have a look at who's playing who in the first round before we head on over to the ATP Tour. Just for perspective, Yastremska is the number 1 seed, so that really shows, I think, who's playing who. However, before we do that, I just wanted to check. No, I'm just checking the qualifying, but we will check the qualifying for Adelaide, so it wasn't Hobart. So again, Hobart's main draw, Yastremska, number 1 seed, and I think Yastremska is ranked roughly around that 35 range. Stevens is an actor as well, so Yastremska, Volnets, Stevens and Lee. Would love to see Stevens do well here, because she didn't have, I think, as much success in Auckland as potentially anticipated, and there's been a little bit of a rankings regression. Bozes Meniera and Karl, Shramkova and Kessler are underway as we are going live. Anisimova and Seville, a little bit dangerous there, but Anisimova is the 3rd seed, so definitely favoured to track potentially quarters or onwards. Bondar and Sheriff, they've just hit the courts. Tomova, Minen, Wang and Evanasian, they are underway now. It looks pretty tight. Again, Evanasian had a good week last week. Let's see if she can build on that. Sun and Cannon, that's going to be very tough for both players. Both of them lost early in Auckland, I believe. I believe Cannon was in Auckland. That said, it was disappointing for Sun, understandably. So it would be great for Sun to get some traction, potentially make the quarter semi-finals, if not further. And I think that'll be a good metric to go by leading into the Open. Blinkova, Pera, Danilovic, joint definitely has to be favoured. That said, Danilovic, she has been tracking the end of last season and is on a rankings high. So is joint. although Janilevich is ranked well ahead of joint now. Lynette Gracheva, Yuan Osorio, Kudermetova and Cocchiaretto, Kalinina and Bronzetti. Let's see again if Kalinina can build on her performance in Brisbane with a very good performance there. And Mertens is the number 1 seed. She will play Paris Diaz in the first round. So we will be able to catch up on Hobart later on in the week as the tournament does unfold, similar with Adelaide. And when we do touch on Hobart's draw and Adelaide, we will touch on the qualifying of the Australian Open that does kick off today. We're not going to dive into all the names in there. We're going to leave that for next episode because that's going to be a lot to unveil, as well as obviously what's been happening with Adelaide and Hobart as the respective draws do unfold. All right, again, so Adelaide kicks off today, but what I wanted to touch on first is the qualifying, because what's really interesting here, look at these names in the first round of qualifying: Seidman, Benchik, Fernandez, Sakari, Stearns we've got, Rakimova, Buskova, Sersteja, Siniakova, Tomljanovic and Kruger. This is qualifying, so that is not the main draw. That's very significant. I don't believe we had that depth in qualifying in Brisbane, for example. So let's have a look who progressed. As far as second round, Seidman and Benchik played off. Benchik got the win over Seidman, 2 and 3. Again, qualifying. Fernandez made her way through qualifying, just 3 and 1 over Berge. Sakari, however, she got through first round. She fell, so Sakari lost to Stearns in the second round of qualifying in 3 sets. That second set in a tie break, that Sakari won 12-10. Wang got through over Rakimova. Buskova got through over Naima in 3. Sersteja fell in the first round. Siniakova, she progressed over Buska, then Kruger. So Tomljanovic did not progress either. All right, that's a lot there. Let's have it now. Head on over to the singles. It's not underway yet. It will kick off very, very shortly because we are recording today's episode relatively early. I'll say in the AM. All right, so Pegula is the number 1 seed for perspective. It is a 32 draw. I believe it's Adelaide is a 250 event. I'm just going to double check. No, it is a 500. So my apologies. It is a 500. Okay, so again, let's have a look. There's going to be some very good points on the line here. Similar with Brisbane, again, was a 500. Pegula, number 1 seed. Sakari, interestingly, even though she did not qualify, there must have been a withdrawal because she has made it to the main draw. That's interesting there. That said, I believe I'm just going to double back. Yeah, so because Sakari did fall, she still made her way into the main draw. So there must have been another play that did withdraw. All right, so Pegula with a bye first round. Noskova and Sakari. That's going to be a very good benchmark for Sakari after essentially how she played at the United Cup. Noskova, again, how she played in Brisbane. Noskova is the higher ranked player. This time last year, however, Sakari was ranked inside the top 10. Kostyuk and Kruger first round. Stearns and Badosa first round. Both of them are going to be jam-packed. Collins and Jabeur first round. That's going to be huge. Collins, she was cheering on Team USA at the United Cup. Jabeur, she's got a few matches on her belt in Brisbane, so that's going to be very interesting. Right now, as we're going live, Putintseva and Vekic are underway. Putintseva is up 5-2. Pavlyuchenkova and Vondrasova, very interesting. Again, this time last year, Vondrasova was ranked inside the top 10. Obviously not anymore. So Pavlyuchenko really is the higher ranked player. Siniakova, Schneider did not perform as anticipated in Brisbane. So that's going to be very interesting as a good benchmark. Similar to Ostapenko, didn't perform in Brisbane. She's got Fretch first up. Haddad Mayer and Keys. Keys didn't go, let's say, as far in Auckland as anticipated. Haddad Mayer, I think this is her first match back. let's see how that unfolds. And Jones and Wang are underway at the moment. Jones has that first set 6-4. Gadecki, Kazatkina will then play Kalinskaya and Bencic. That's going to be very interesting. I think it's going to be a very good marker for Bencic to really, I think, gauge her current level. Granted, she's only played less than a dozen, I think, matches back. Kalinskaya is on the verge of the top 10, so that's going to be very interesting. Boskova and Samsonova will play off. Fernandez blows my mind that she had to qualify, especially after her performance at the United Cup. She'll play Alexandrova first round. Navarro, second seed, has the bye. Look, Navarro, she fell second round, really her first match in Brisbane. Let's see what happens. Look, if Navarro plays well here in Adelaide, you need to favour her to make the round of 16 quarterfinals, potentially semi-finals in Australia. If she falls here, and it's really 2 in a row, we're going to have to look maybe third round, a round of 16, and go from there and see how that draw plays out, looking at different levels at this time of the year. All right, that's it for the WTA Tour. We'll quickly have a look at the rankings. So Stopuseva, welcome to the top 100. 1 point progression. She was just outside the top 100, and she was the player who qualified for all Grand Slams the past year. Welcome to the top 100, Kim Birrell. She is the Gold Coast local. She is that player that I coached a long time ago when she was very little. Definitely under 10 years of age, and when I was beginning to coach or transitioning from, or around the time I was still playing coaching. Long story, I've shared more in previous episodes, but her parents do run a local academy here, our club on the Gold Coast. So very exciting for Kimberly. I don't believe she's been ranked inside the top 100 previously, 26 years of age, so really impressive for her. Hopefully she can maintain that form and carry that with her essentially through the Australian Open, and let's see how that plays out. There's a few movers here, so I'm just going to highlight some key ones. Podoroska, she's up 5 to 95 in the world. Yes, there are some regressions here. We've got Stevens, for example. She's back 10 points to 84. Would have to do not being able to defend points this time of year. Lamens, she's up 7 to 80 in the world. Veronika Kudermetova, she's up 5, she's down 5, my apologies, to 77. We've got some small movers, 2s and 3s, forwards and backs. Wozniacki, noteworthy, she's back 3 to 73. She has withdrawn from the Australian Open. Along with Krejcikova, has a back injury, and that's a top 10 player. So we're going to miss Krejcikova. She made the quarterfinals in Australia last year. And I think 3 other Grand Slams throughout the season. Very impressive. Parks, she's up 14 points to 68 in the world. That's a very good milestone for her. Raducanu, she's back 4 to 60. Polina Kudermetova, 50-point progression, 21 years of age, was ranked 107. Now she is ranked 57 in the world. Very, very impressive. Kruger up 10 points to 54 in the world. Here we go. Osaka, she's up 7 points to 50. Welcome back to the top 50 for Naomi. That's huge. Both, I think, Osaka, Raducanu, they've been trying to break that threshold for the best part of the last 12 months. So well done to Osaka. That's really good to see. Despite that withdrawal in the Auckland final, hopefully she's healthy in Australia, and maybe, just maybe, this is the Grand Slam, we really see Osaka make some inroads. All right, other players that have made, look, Boskova, 2-point progression, 42. Torsen, 9-point progression to 41. So yes, Torsen was ranked inside the top 50, but she's getting closer towards the top 30. Jabeur, she's up 2 points to 40. Again, this time last year was top 10. Vondrasova's 39. This time last year, top 10. All other players are relatively, they've maintained. We're not seeing too many movers. Pavlyuchenkova, she's up to. Svitolina, she's back 6 to 29. Alexandrova's up 1, 27. Putintseva, she's up 4 to 25. That's interesting. That probably wasn't anticipated, but given her performance against Sabalenka, despite the loss, she's definitely going to be, I think, a little bit dangerous in Australia. Bulta, she's up 1, 23. Azarenka's back 2, 22. Makova, she's up 1 to 21. She's really been gaining ground with her ranking last season. Now this season, even if it's only slight, but that will definitely help her, so she will be seeded in Australia. Madison Keys back inside the top 20. She's just up 1 there. Ostapenko, she's just back 2 to 17. Haddad Maguire and Andreeva, they're both at 1 point respectively, 16 and 15. All other players have maintained their ranking, but again, what's interesting that I touched on a short time ago was Sabalenka. She's got that extra 500-point lead over Swiatek, so that is roughly a 1,600-point lead or 1,500-point lead we are seeing now. Fun fact, if Swiatek wins in Australia, I do believe she would again reclaim the #1 ranking. However, if Gauff wins in Australia, she would potentially overtake Swiatek to get to #2 in the world. I believe though Sabalenka, look, if she doesn't advance as far as Swiatek, and Swiatek does, they will switch places, but there's all the more likely, irrespective, Sabalenka, I think most definitely will maintain #1 or 2, depending how that draw unfolds. However, Gauff, who is at 3, if Paolini wins, she could again switch places then with Gauff. There's a lot there, but I think we'll leave the fun with the ranking switches to next or episodes around when the Australian Open does kick off. All right, that's a lot. Let's head on over to the ATP Tour. All right, so we're going to kick off with the United Cup that has been underway. We did touch on all of the results, I think, thus far. So what we really want to look at now is Kazakhstan and Poland straight into the semi-finals. And this was really huge. Hopefully, like me, you were on the edge of your seat. A little bit different when we're looking at the men. So Hurkacz and Shevchenko, relatively straightforward. For perspective, it actually went for a little under 1 hour. 3 and 2 to Hurkacz. Next, which I think we were all waiting for, was Swiatek and Rybakina. Really to gauge where Rybakina was at, also where Swiatek was at. Irrespective of the scoreline, similar to other matches, this was very, very close. Swiatek got those points just when it counted. 7-6, 6-4, tiebreak 7-5. That was so incredibly close. Similar to Bulta's match, where Swiatek just came through. And the final, which we will get to shortly, was equally just as close. All right, the other semi-final was US and Czech Republic. But before I do that and get ahead of myself, there was a doubles to be played out. So Poland did win the doubles as well over Kazakhstan. Okay, so for the tie. Other semi-finals, US and Czech Republic, or Czechia, Fritz and Makak. This was actually really disheartening because Makak won that first set over Fritz 7-6. Fritz was up 6-5 in the second set. At this point, the match was under 2 hours long, and Makak was meant to come out to serve to bring it to a tie break potentially, but instead he retired. There was a lot of, I'll say, antics, unfortunately, on the side. It was really confusing, to say the least, especially for a player playing for their country, not just for themselves, to retire. That definitely is not playing for the team. for lack of better wording, that really was an individual's mindset, not a team mindset. So that was really disheartening there. That could have given, I think, Czechia the chance to go into the final, because Makak was very close to, I think, winning that or giving his team a chance nonetheless. All right, Gauff and Makova. This did not go out again as anticipated, because we thought Makova would have pushed Gauff to those 2 sets, potentially 3, especially after how well or cleanly she, defeated Paolini. But Gauff was much too good, just under an hour and a half, 6-1, 6-4. So a bit more, I think, daunting than the scoreline suggests, but just under that 1.5 hour mark. But well done to Gauff. She played very, very cleanly and very impressively. As far as the doubles were concerned, the US did win that tie 7-5, 6-love. All right, what we have been hanging out for, and this did wrap up late last night. I was hoping a doubles was going to get underway, because I would have loved to see Swiatek Hurkacz against Gauff and Fritz in the doubles. That wasn't to be. This was so close. I'm going to start with the men's. Over 2 hours, just under 2 hours, 20 minutes, 6-4, 5-7, 7-6, 7-4 in the tie break to Fritz. That was either player could have got that. Well done to Hurkacz for that second set. Well done to Fritz in the first. That was neck and neck in that third set. It was very exciting. It was a really good match to watch. So well done for Taylor there. Other match that came earlier, and look, for perspective, I just said that 3-set match was 2 hours, or just under 2 hours 20. It was 2 hours 18 minutes. This next match between Gauff and Swiatek was 20 minutes less, or a little about 25 minutes less. 2 sets. Just under 2 hours. For perspective of how neck and neck this match was, 6-4, 6-4, Gauff. This was so close. I think the most challenging part here is that we saw this also, or I saw this at the Olympics. When Swiatek was favoured against Zheng, it was the semi-finals. She had the chance to progress to the gold medal match. The emotions she had playing for her country got the better of her, and she wasn't able to play her best tennis. And you could see Swiatek not as in control as her emotions as she typically has been. And when she is in control, she gets to play more freely and her best or better tennis. What happened here was very similar, neck and neck. But as soon as Swiatek lost that first set, you could see more of those emotions there. And I think even through that second set, she was struggling. So rather than playing freely with that belief that she can, it got the better of her. And Gauff, on the other hand, was playing freely. She was hitting through her shots. She was going for it. Swiatek, very similar, but it was a little bit too much or not enough. It's a little bit conflicting there. But in those moments, you could see Gauff was the stronger, more freer player. Swiatek was the more just slightly hesitant player, not hitting as smoothly through her shots, whereas Coco really was. And I think Iga came into this match with a very good chance of getting the win, even though Gauff did get the win WTA finals. We wanted to see just a little bit more. So this is the question mark now that we've got heading into Australia, if Swiatek can give a little more. If Gauff maintains her current trajectory, semi-finals, finals. if Swiatek maintains her current level, round of 16, potentially quarters, if she finds that next level, that's when we're going to see quarters, semis, potentially finals. Sabalenka, very similar. If she maintains her level from the final, quarters, here we come, maybe semi-finals, even more, we want that next level. But it's really going to depend, very interestingly, who they face off in, whether it's the round of 16 quarterfinals, how that player is also tracking. Because we've got some very impressive other players we are yet to touch on, which we will over, I think, the coming weeks, and how their game influences the others. We know Swiatek got very good wins over, say, Rybakina. Paolini's got good wins. Gauff, however, has a clean slate. Sabalenka's been challenged somewhat. Rybakina, I think, is going to go in a little bit underrated. Navarro, we know what's happened there, well with Kazakhina, just to round out the top 10. And as far as obviously the men's are concerned, we're yet to see Sinner in action. We saw Zverev somewhat in action, so we touched on Zverev at the United Cup in a previous episode very cleanly. We're yet to see Alcaraz. Fritz is playing good. Yes, the finals at the US Open. Can he actually win one more? I think he needs the draw in his favour, in all honesty. If he plays cleanly, and even if he faces Sinner in the final, he's still in with a shot. But we wanted to see him maintain that momentum. We're yet to see Medvedev run, yes, but round of 16, maybe quarters. A bit hesitant to say more. Rublev, he fell early in Hong Kong. De Minaur, absolutely he's in with a shot. He's played some huge tennis the past week at the United Cup. Again, we touched on his matches in last week's episode. Dimitrov, however, maybe he's fallen a little bit early in Brisbane, so we will get to that now. All right, so that's wrapping up the United Cup. Well done, Team USA, able to defend their title. And Poland, I believe, also runners-up last, or in 2024, runners-up again. But look, all four of those players, women and men, we've got four of the best players in the world. All right, Brisbane, round of 16, here we come. We did round of 32 last or previous episode. So we had Djokovic and Monfils in the round of 16, 3-3 to Djokovic. Well played to Novak. Gale, you know, he's hanging in there, but apparently I think the statistic there is Djokovic leads the head-to-head, something like 20-0. That's huge. So that is a very big, I think, mind game there for Monfils. But again, well done to both players. Opelka and Analdi, this was a bit surprising. That said, Opelka's serve is on fire. 7-6, 7-6. We're seeing a lot of those tie breaks. That scoreline there, 11-9. 7-4 respectively. Mapesh Pericard, TFO. Mapesh Pericard is definitely underrated. He's absolutely one of those players to watch, and I've said that essentially the last half of last season. 6-4, 7-6 over TFO. Menzies got the win over Laktovic, who was a lucky loser, 3-2. Jari over Bonzi, qualified 2-3. And Lecheka over Nishioka, a qualifier, 3 sets there. Thompson over Mitchelson, 5-3. Dimitrov over Vukic, 6-2, 7-6. All right, so that rounds out the round of 16. Quarterfinals, getting to the nitty-gritty. Again, Brisbane. Djokovic and Opelka. Without a doubt, Djokovic was favoured, but this tie-break set them apart. Opelka was able to get that, again, tie-breaks, 7-6, 8-6 in that tie-break. But with that break of serve, I believe it was just that one break of serve in that second set, that's all Opelka needed, 6-3, to get the win over Djokovic, who was looking to get his 100th title, but he's still at number 99. I believe the Olympics does not count. All right, Mapesh Pericard then over Menzies. Very good win, 7-5, 7-6. Lecheka over Jarry, 4-4. Dimitrov over Thompson, 6-1, 2-1. Thompson had to retire. There was a little bit of a niggle somewhere, not sure where. A little bit disappointing, but hopefully Thompson's good to go for Australia, because I believe he was seeded in the US, but it'll be the first time Jordan's been seeded at the Australian Open, his home slam. All right, semi-finals, Opelka and Mapesh Pericard. Look, this is a little bit surprising, granted with how both of these players were serving, but really Opelka broke Mapesh Pericard's serve early, got the first set 6-3. That's all it took. Second set went to a tiebreak 7-6, but this was also the match Opelka was starting to feel a couple of niggles in his wrist that, along with other niggles, has sidelined him, I think, for the best part of the last 18 months, if not more. Lecheka and Dimitrov then. Dimitrov was absolutely the favourite, but Lecheka surprised Dimitrov there 4-4. So that was a very big upset. I think we were all expecting, obviously, Djokovic and Dimitrov to push through. So the two players to push them out, Opelka and Lecheka respectively, advanced to the finals. The finals, however, was a little bit disappointing because Lecheka up 4-1 and Opelka, his wrist started to play up, had to withdraw. Very disappointing, but well done to Lecheka. I believe this was Lecheka's maiden title. 23 years of age, ranked 23 in the world, or that was his high. So that's going to be very, very interesting now how that tracks, I think, with this title. And again, those rankings are still yet to be updated, I believe. I'm just going to check now. Yeah, they're still yet, unfortunately, to be updated, but that definitely will push Lecheka's ranking ahead. All right, over to Hong Kong, and we did see upsets here. I'm just going to quickly touch on the round of 16. Rublev was the number 1 seed, but he did fall to Mrazin. So in that second round, or round of 16, Shang over Martinez, Nishikori over Kakanakov. Big upset there, but well done to Nishikori, 3 sets. Nori over Sonigo, 3 sets. Muller over Kekanovic in 3. That third set was a tie break, 12-10. And Fils over Berge, straight sets. Muna over Borges, straight sets. Borges, I believe, made at least 3, if not all 4, round of 16s at each Grand Slam last season. Definitely under the radar, one to watch in Australia. Potentially may make the quarterfinals. If he does, I bet people will be surprised. But as far as the data is concerned, that's not surprising. So watch out potentially for Borges under the radar in those earlier rounds. Morsetti was the second seed, got the win over Diallo, a qualifier, straight sets in the second round. All right, into the quarterfinals. Shang over Mrazin, 3 sets to advance. Nishikori over Nori, 3 sets to advance to the semi-finals. Very impressive win, granted, over Nori. Muller has upset Fils, the 4th seed, in 3 sets, and Mazzetti was upset by Manar in 3 sets. So 1 seed, 2 seed, 4 seed, and 3 are all out. That's noteworthy. And very, I think, surprising. That said, we did see the same in the men's draw in Brisbane, also the women's draw in Brisbane. So that's not that surprising. And I did share a bit more or the previous episode, why this happens, a little bit more in my latest release as well, why we see the seeds fall early on in the season, and why players that are not seeded really start to advance in the early parts of the season, because they're riding those peaks. They've got more matches under their belt, whereas depending on how seeds have managed their off season, granted it's a very small period of time, I'm not sure if 4 to 5 weeks really can be counted as an off season, but still there's actually a method behind why this does not happen if it is not managed accordingly. All right, so semi-finals, Nishikori over Shang, 4-3. Shang then did retire. Muller over Muna in 3 sets there. Final, we've got Nishikori. He made his first final, I think it's in at least 5 years potentially, or thereabouts. Muller in action, 3 seeds there. For perspective, Muller is 67 in the world, has yet to win a title, and then he's won a title over Nishikori 2-6, 6-1, 6-3. I think the most exciting thing here is that Nishikori has put himself in a position to do well. He's made a final. We're starting to see some really good tennis from him. Look, rewind a couple of seasons ago, or 4 or 5 seasons ago, when Nishikori was in the top 10. Unfortunately, he had so many injuries he's had to deal with. Wouldn't you absolutely love Nishikori to make a quarterfinal of the Australian Open? Any Grand Slam, but it would be amazing because of how much we know what he's capable of, what he gave the game in even that short period of time would be really rewarding. All right, that's last week's All in Action on the ATP Tour. So this week we've got Adelaide and Auckland for players. So we're not going to have a look at the qualifying. We're going to dive right into just the main draws, have a quick overview because none of these matches are in action just yet. We do have a couple we did share on the WTA Tour, but let's have a look at the draw at Adelaide. Paul is the number 1 seed with a bye. Sorflin will play a lucky loser. Goffin and Minar. Nakashima will play a lucky loser. Ogor Alisame with a bye. Kazuks will play a lucky loser. Vukic and Garon. Shapovalov and Zhang, 9th seed. Bublik, 6th seed, will play Kekimovic. Rindenek, O'Connell, 2 will play a lucky loser. 2 has a wild card there. A lucky loser got very lucky and has a bye in the first round, not yet disclosed. So they will get automatic points round 16. If that's not lucky, I don't know what is. All right, Echeverry, 8th seed, will play Schoolcate. Nishioka will play Kokkinakis, who has won Adelaide previously. Bautista Agut will play Davidovic Fokina. Korda is the number 2 seed with a bye. Look, you really need a favour, Korda and I think Paul, respectively, to advance. We've seen a lot of other players inside the top 10, some inside the top 20 in action the past week. Let's see what we're going to see leading into the Australian Open or the days, week prior. All right, so like the WTA Tour, we will touch on these events in a couple of days' time to see how these players have been tracking. All right, over to Auckland, 32 draw. Both of these events are 250s, unlike WTA that have back-to-back 500s. A little bit confounding, yes. All right, so number 1 seed in Auckland is Shelton. Number 2 seed for perspective is Tabilo. So that's a little bit, I think, of a different level in contrast to, say, last week's events. All right, so Shelton by first round. Muller, Menzies. Let's see if Muller can build on that title win from, well, just yesterday that's just gone. Menzies, however, is going to be a little bit of a challenging first round. Navone, Opelka. Let's see how Riley's wrist goes first round. A bit surprising that he's playing. I'm not going to be shocked if he is a late withdrawal. That'll be really interesting to see, I think, in the days to come. Also, obviously, with how his wrist holds up and if he's able to give himself a chance at the Australian Open. Borges Darderi, that match must have been first on court because it's already completed and Borges is the 7th seeded. He did get the win, 5-7, 6-3, 7-5 over Darderi. He will play the winner of Opelka and Navone. All right, Serralundo with a bye. Carabella Spayina will play Pooley, Struff and Beckcroft. Kaboli will play a lucky loser. Let's see if he can build on that form from the United Cup. Mapesh Perikar will play Boo. Look, let's see how far Mapesh Perikar can go. Can he get to the semi-finals, if not finals? Martinez, Monfils. Nori will play a lucky loser. Baez has a bye. Mitchelson will play lucky loser. Diallo will play Sanigo. A lucky loser will play another lucky loser. And the winner then will make it to the round of 16. And they will play Tabilo, the 2nd seed, who has a bye first round. Wow, oh my goodness. As far as I think updates are concerned, similar with the WTA Tour, there's not too much to touch on, but we will leave that to future episodes since there will be more in the coming week. One last check for the rankings. So ATP Tour unfortunately is yet to update the rankings unlike the WTA Tour. Someone's having a sleep in today, I think, in contrast. So we will touch on ranking updates during or in the next couple of days. Keep in mind they are updated only weekly, so there won't be any changes, so there's no harm in that short delay. Okay, today's episode was absolutely jam-packed. We have covered so much, and as much as I want to dive into the Australian Open qualifying, I'm going to hold that off when we're wrapping up the results or the periodic ones of Adelaide, Hobart and Auckland respectively. It has been an absolutely stellar week, and hopefully you are just as excited as I am for the Australian Open, because there is so much. I think again we're going to get to unpack different levels of play. We may take a little bit of a different approach at this Australian Open to previous, because again we do have that latest release available with new data insights, new implications, and new players to watch on the radar. All right, so thank you so much for listening. To grab your copy of my new release, My Tennis Black Book, Federer, Nadal, Serena, Djokovic, you can find it on AM8 International or Amazon, so irrespective where you're based in the world. For any comments or questions, head to AM8 or topic thread, or leave comments directly on YouTube or Spotify. To interact with Beyond Top 10 Tennis, catch up on our blogs, or sign up to my newsletter, all links are in the episode notes, as well as how to access Pink Octopus books to Spruik. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, like, share, or all of the above. Beyond Top 10 Tennis exists for you, so please consider sharing us with those you know near and far. And if you're serious about heading towards the top 10 or want to know what you're missing to secure that maiden Grand Slam or more, don't be shy, come and say hi. Okay, on that note, thank you so much for listening. I am so incredibly grateful. I am your host, Dr. Ashley Morgan Berge, and this is Beyond Top 10 Tennis, and I'll